Hey everyone, how's everybody doing? I hope you guys can hear me. Here's another Tuesday night stream where we try to attempt to build our application by ourselves from scratch. If you're just joining us and you've never seen this live before, it's an adventure for sure. Anyway, let me know if you guys could hear me, see me, say hello in the comments. But today we're going to continue building out our application. It's not that impressive, you know. We are taking one step at a time, trying to figure things out. As always try to figure things out. And I think at the beginning, my streams, like my internet here is kind of rough, so I think when you first start watching it, it's going to buffer a little bit, so if you're constantly feel like your stream is rebuffering, just go back a few seconds, play from there. But anyway, besides that being said, I know the holidays are right around the corner, so for sure just want to say hope everybody has amazing holidays, and that it's important to take time for your family and yourself. But in today's stream, we're going to continue before the holidays and see what we could accomplish. And if you guys could see me or hear me, let me know. I would love to know ahead of time that things work. And RD Code says, yeah, there seems to be some lag. Hopefully that'll clear up. Let me know if that clears up or not, and I'll see if I could fix it on my end. Like, I don't know if I could go any less on settings in terms of my streaming, but I could probably turn off the music. You know, turn off the music will probably make things easier. Oeso's here. What's up? Walter's here. Hey Walter, how's it going? He says hi, Paul. And my man, how's it going? It's going good, Racer. I'm doing good. You know, just trying to keep on track and stay consistent with these live streams where pretty much like every day is a fail day. But how do you learn? Except you try your best. So with that being said, like a while ago, if you guys are, you know, not familiar, we started with this application, which I have big dreams for it, but we're not there yet. It's going to take some time to get there, but I'll share my screen here to show a little bit. And this application is going to be our Dev Hunt application, where you're able to share your portfolios. People will eventually be able to upvote, comment on them. You could blog about the projects that you're building and all this other great stuff. So we don't have too many crazy features, but we got some stuff going on. And before someone complains like, oh, it doesn't look that great, it's okay. I don't care about how it looks, because at some point I'm going to redo all the CSS. But for me right now as a developer, the most important thing is the functionality. So let's take a quick tour here. So we have our home section, which shows some of the blogs. This is running locally. I guess I could show it to you guys. This is actually deployed. If you want to see it yourself, you could go to www.community1project.com, and this is where a Dev Hunt application lives. And currently, like, if you're not, let me log out here. I don't remember the user, I always forget. But when you first come to this website, right now you'll see a couple of projects. In order for you to vote, you have to log in, but you could check out, you know, the blog section. And nothing too exciting yet, and we're gonna make this better eventually. And the cool thing about this is that this is going to be written in markdown, and the reason we're doing with markdown is because we are able to compile or transcribe markdown to HTML and CSS, which allows us to style our blog, which we'll talk more in details. Now, if you want to see developers, so that screen is going to come at some point, or you want to be able to, let's say, you know, after you see the details of the project, you know, and you want to leave a comment or something, you know, you got to log in. So I'm going to log in. I think Coding After 30 has an account here. I'm assuming he does. And let me log in. And yes, I figured out the user initially. So once you're logged in, you could like and dislike, you know, whatever you want to do. When you go to the details section, this is actually one of our members from our private community, James. He jumped in here. Oh, yes. And it's funny because James left me a message here, and I remember why. I could actually give him an answer back in the comment section that works. Yes. That makes sense. since I am currently only displaying 3 items at a time. And if I click send, it will send my comment and he could check it out. But the point here is that we're slowly getting the functionality of the things that work. And now, because we logged in, we could see the developer section. We could like leave comments. And again, if I'm in a protected route or like the dashboard section, which we will all redo, we're just taking one step at a time. If you log out, you no longer have access. And before we continue, by the way, I just want to show you how we ended up making the private routes work. And a couple of streams ago, we took this application from using React Router 5 to using React Router 6. And all of you guys basically helped me how to do that. And so what I want to do here is kind of go over really quickly. So last time you guys saw me kind of having issues because I couldn't get this route to work. And it's because I did not include this. And so it wasn't working as expected. And you could read more about it, but you need to, if you're going to have a parent route that I moved. So you see, this is our blog section. If you go to blog, I ended up kind of keeping the route here. To me, I like this approach better. So now when you go on the blog, it will render the detailed post detail view. So basically, you know, when you go here, you go to the blog section, it'll show the blog section, but then when you click the post, it'll pass that ID and it will render the next blog. And again, we'll style this at some later future date, no point here. But thank you guys on the last stream. You guys helped me get the routing work, so I'm really excited. And where's the code here? Yeah, and so this is using React Router 6. I love it. I like it. Like one thing that I was kind of a little pissy about, that I had to do the private route this way. I kind of like the ability to be able to pass another component outside of route, but if you're using routes, you can't pass any other component except the route component, which is fine. It's not a big deal. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about continuing adding the ability for people to be able to add their blog. And this is being built yeah, and thank you, Steve. And this is using Strapi as a backend right now, because I don't want to write, you know, backend from scratch at this point. And also for the same reason as a lot of you guys who are just starting out, and maybe you are not quite ready to jump into backend development, but you do want to create some sort of project which has, you know, backend functionality, which allows you to do a lot of cool stuff without you having to write it completely from scratch. And so I'm using Strapi for that. And I'll talk more about it, but they'll give you this nice, great UI that you could log into. And once you log in, you could logged in as the wrong user. Log out. Paul Braslavsky, the main user. Once you logged in, you're able to manage everything from this application, including adding posts, right? So if I wanted to add a post here, right, I could write I could hit, let me go back one here. I could hit add new post and test, you know, whatever, test. It's not private off, whatever. Let's do test, and then let's add an image. Why not use the same image? Let's use how to invest in stocks. This is definitely not about it, but I have that image available here. And let's add the author. It'll be me. Save. Click publish. So this is happening from the Strapi backend. And so now when I go to my application and I refresh, now we have our test blog that I just added. And I didn't add an image into the actual blog or the body. So let me go and finish that. Like so, if I want to add an image here. So notice that we have this functionality here. If I want to make the text bold, we kind of have this rich editor, which I kind of like this in Strapi. Not quite sure how to exactly make this from scratch, so I cheated a bit, but it's no big deal. If I want to add an image, which is going to be something also a little bit tricky, because with Strapi, we're able to pick an image that we like, click finish, and it's going to add this into our code, which I'm still also not quite sure how to do at the moment. But and then you could like write some text, save, Let's kind of go back and refresh. And so notice now we have our image, we have stuff, and this is using Markdown. So I wanted to have the same feature because I don't want this Strapi kind of backend. This is more for admin users, someone who's going to be managing the platform, but I don't want normal users to be able to log in here and be able to add blogs or do stuff. I want all that to happen from front end. So if you go to login, Paul Boslavsky is a user, and I think test user. Nope, I always forget because I have so many different passwords. Maybe it's coding after 30, coding after 30, coding after 30, test user. I always forget the user, but anyway, once you logged in, here we go. And here we are. And when we go to our dashboard, again, I'm gonna redo this, but I kind of have this nice rich editor. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kind of, this is how we add projects, and I didn't move it to its separate page yet or whatever. So let me kind of remove that so it doesn't bother us anymore. Let's go to our dashboard. Let me just comment this out for a second because we don't need to worry about that at the moment. And I'm gonna comment this out just so we have a clear screen here. So this is an editor that allows you to kind of have the same features. Like if I want to add a title, you know, I'm able to click the buttons. This is the title, and I'll show you like the preview of the blog post. So here you would use like, you know, MDX, or not MDX, but Markdown to write stuff, you know, step 1, you know. And the point is, like, I like these little features for us idiots who don't know how to or forget something, and I could add a bunch more other ones here. Step 2, but I'll show you which library that I'm using. And I want to be able to, you know, this shows you the preview of what the blog is gonna look like. Now, of course, I could recreate this myself, and eventually I will recreate this rich editor myself, but I don't have the time, or do I have the complete know-how how to do that now? So I ended up finding this library. And before we continue what we want to accomplish today, let me kind of show you. Basically, I created this component called Markdown Editor, and it's using a thing called MD-Edit. And if you go to my package JSON file, you could see in dependencies somewhere in here, it'll be web vitals, blah 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 blah. It's somewhere in there, the package. Yeah, we're using React Markdown, and then actually, I'm curious, like, can't read too fast. Let me go here, Markdown Editor, and I'm pulling in this package. Whatever, it's in there. React MD Editor. That's the package. That's the NPM package you guys could find, which allows you to kind of have this rich editor for being able to write in your Markdown and be able to preview and kind of see what it's going to look like before you submit your blog. Because at the end of the day, when we add our blog post, it is Markdown that's being, you know, changed to HTML and CSS. So if you look at here, you know, you could expect the elements. We have H1, we have our P tag, we have our H2, and so on. And so I wanted to create that nicer experience for people to be able to, you know, write their blog without too many issues. Yes, and that's exactly the node package that I'm using. So let me look at the comments first before we kind of talk about what I'm going to try to do right now, walk you guys through it, and some of the challenges that I have. So one of the challenges that I will have here is when I click to add the image button, I need to figure out how to be able to add the link to the image that is hosted on Cloudinary. And I have to give you an ability to upload your images to Cloudinary from here, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And again, we're not going to get all the functionality done today, but we're going to have a good start. But before we continue, let me take a look at the comments, because it's always great to chat with you guys. So we have Brian saying hello, sounds good. Somebody for few, then back to working on some JS. Dude, you're doing a great job. I see your GitHub commits. Yep, the comments work. You know, Steve's here. Love having Steve here. Jesse's here. Nick's here. What up? What's up, my man? Looking good. Engine Boy defines Strapi in 5 seconds. it's a way for you to create a backend API when you're lazy and don't want to put too much work into it. And I wouldn't probably say that it's the only way. And there's more to it. The reason why I like Strapi, because it's built on JavaScript and Node and Express and allows you to use GraphQL. And so when you're a beginner, it's actually very easy to get started, and you could create some pretty nice applications where you could have a beautiful front end that you create with React, and you could manage most of your data from the actual Strapi UI. Now, I showed you in this example, you could also handle all that stuff, full CRUD application from your front end, and Strapi makes it very easy for you to do. And that's one of the reasons why I talk about Strapi a lot, because I think from a lot of different things, it's a great way for you guys to build a full stack application without sweating too much. The second thing I like about it, because it's open source, it is built on Node, Express, you know, and you're able to, if you check out Strapi documentation, they give you hooks to be able to, you know, add additional, or not add, well, you could add additional controllers and endpoints, but you could also customize and overwrite controllers that Strapi naturally writes for you. So you could add additional code, you could add services to share amongst other controllers, you could also do permissions, and it really mimics, you know, the stuff that you would be doing in your own, let's say, Express application without having to start it from scratch. So I would say it's an easy way to kind of massage your way into backend development without diving into backend development, or at least diving into it at the level that you're comfortable with. So you could customize it as far as you want. And I like Strapi because for majority applications, believe it or not, it's pretty flexible. So like, and actually the Strapi team, they say, you know, if you want to be happy, use Strapi, you know, however you want to take it. But I feel like for me, if there's something that exists that could make my ability to build an application faster and easier, so I could get to the final product faster, I'll use that. And Strapi, one of those things. With that being said, like, I'm continuing to learn backend development and using Strapi and customizing Strapi on the backend, which we'll take a look at some of the code eventually. It allows you to make that transition. But my goal for 2022, outside of practicing more testing, is to continue to dive into backend with using, you know, Apollo server, you know, Node, and using something like Prisma and Postgresql to create GraphQL backends. That's kind of something I get excited about, but we'll talk more about it. Let me check out some comments here. And Nick says, sorry to get off topic, but are you going to have a show when you evaluate subscribers project? Yeah, and I do that. So on Saturdays, I stream 7 p.m. Central Time. So during that stream, I talk more about like hiring strategies or how to look for jobs or what are the basic things you need to do. And part of that, we do subscriber projects. So you could email me at codingafter30@gmail.com. And, you know, I'll definitely be more than happy to review and take a look at portfolios on the Saturday stream. But the Tuesday stream is more about development. Yep. And yes, for sure, Steve. And I've done that before. So if someone who wants to have a full server for which you could do full CRUD, and you just want to not have to deal with backend, and you want to develop a front-end application which has full CRUD functionality, JSON server is even easier. And there's a lot of different things like that. So JSON server is really nice. And what's cool about JSON server, you could write your code against JSON server, and then, you know, when you have a backend, you could just change the endpoint URLs that you're hitting, and it's, for the most part, if your backend matches the calls that you were making from your front end using JSON server, like, your application's gonna work. So let's kind of take a look at the challenge today. Let's think about it. So this is how Strapi looks. So we have, you know, this ability to add a title. We have tags that we could add. We could add our content. We could add our image. And so for today's blog, I just want to test that we're able to add some sort of data to our backend, to our database. And let's start with the title and being able to add the body of our blog, because I'm pretty sure when I set this up, none of these fields are required. So it's not going to have an issue if I believe you need to have an author, title, and content, and we'll be fine. If you don't have the image, that's fine too. And we could actually take a look. So today's goals will be, let's add a title and the page, and then when people in our application, will add like some submit button here. If people click submit, it's going to, in the blog section, at least add the blog with the title and basic markdown image. We won't worry about today. We're just going to start nice and simple, see what happens. Because the biggest thing for me is right now, if we could add the title and the markdown and we could have like that show up in the front end, that's a good start, because it shows that we were able to do something in the front end, pass it to the back end was able to do whatever it needed to do, post it in the database, and then we were able to view it on the front end. So let's kind of see where to start. And where are we going to start? We're going to start with setting up a like additional fields, that's in our dashboard here, to be able to add our title. And a lot of times, you know what, there's nothing wrong with cheating, and for the sake of the stream, I'm gonna kind of cheat, not too much, but a little bit. And so our add project component, right here we go, has a bunch of this logic already available. And so like what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of talk through it, and I'm just going to steal a few things from here. And I'm using React Bootstrap just for easier, because I don't want to deal with CSS right now. So there's this library called React Bootstrap, which basically allows you to have React style components with some Bootstrap styling. So they're not styled components, they're Bootstrap styled applied to React components. Style components is a whole different library, whatever. And so like you could go into forms, and this is part of the cheating here. A lot of times to be a power user, just search stuff. Forms, navbar. Okay, that really not what I wanted to do. Anyway, forms, here we go. So we have our forms. I'll show you some examples. And so I'm literally going to use these components that are already pre-made for us. And I'm just showing you where I got it originally. And for my sake, I'm literally just going to go to my application here. And we need a title. So I'm going to literally copy this whole form. There's a lot of stuff here. Copy and paste. And I'll talk you guys through the logic here. So let's go to our dashboard. Now, right now, I'm just randomly sticking stuff into my dashboard, but usually you want to organize your code. So we have add project, which is, you know, makes sense to add a project. Now let's do another component called add block. And maybe the naming is kind of silly, but it's okay. You know what I mean? The beauty is get it working first, and then you could refactor. And I love how Steve is showing his love and support for Bootstrap. I really appreciate it, you know. And listen, it pains me to use Bootstrap, but it beats writing CSS randomly when all you want to do is get something to work. Like for me, I'm all about the functionality first, and then you could style it to your heart's desire eventually. So let's make a new component here, new folder. We're gonna call it very original. God damn it. Come on, mouse. What are you doing? New folder. Add post. Why not? And new file. We're gonna call it add post. I guess I should have whatever, it's okay. I'm not even gonna complain about that right now. And I have these shortcuts. Okay, I typed too fast. RFC, basic component here. And this is where our form is gonna go. This is where we will put our form. Yes, I believe Engine Boy, there's an additional thing that allows you to get some Bootstrap animation. I don't use it too much. I just do it for general organization. Like I don't really care for animation at this point. For me, again, it's just getting stuff to work. And so we have this component. Let's go to our dashboard. let's import our add post. I thought that should automatically import it, but it did not. Add post. And so we have our add post. Now this markdown editor is going to live in our add post, right? So I'm going to delete it from there. I'm going to delete it from here. I'm going to go to my add post, and here I'm going to pass my markdown editor. Like you could retype, but I'm going to just see if it auto markdown. You know what? I'm very upset that my, what do you call it, suggestions are not working, being very confusing. So add markdown editor. I'm down, like, listen, I can't spell to save my life. Editor. And I don't know why it's not showing it. This is weird. From maybe because I'm not spelling it right. From these actually, I'm already in components. It should be right there. Oh my god, are you serious? What are you doing? Oh god, it's blowing up. Export default. Oh god. Oh god. I can't type to save my life, guys. So you're gonna have to bear with my typing. So in theory, that should have added our markdown editor. So let's see what happened here. Can't markdown editor in. Okay, that's obnoxious. I don't know why my computer has issues. Let me see here. We have our components. This is obnoxious. Markdown editor. Markdown. How am I exporting it? Markdown editor. I spelled it right, I'm assuming. Yeah, this is like ridiculous. I gotta take a class on spelling things correctly. But this is one of the things I've noticed with my computer sometimes just decides to not play nice with yeah, you're right, 100%. No, I see it's complaining still. I think I'm already in components. It's the in path thing is, god damn it, I'm so upset right now. So hold on a second. We are inside the components. We have the add post, and then markdown editor. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just my outer path. And why? Hold on a second. I'm like, I just don't like the fact that what is happening here. Uninstall, install. Why you give me hard times? Add project, extension, path IntelliSense. Yeah, the path IntelliSense is just giving me issues. So we imported add posts. Let's go inside add post, and we want to import. Come on, be smart. Do I have to give you markdown editor? I think something like weird with my from. Hold on a second. Yeah, sometimes it's just like so weird. So weird. I am in components though. This should work right here. Markdown doesn't. Yeah, it's I'm really annoyed right now. Massive failure. Markdown editor is inside the components. It is being exported, and I want to edit it in add post. which this should work, but it does not. Sometimes like you might have to restart the server, but it's probably not going to be the case. I'm just not sure. Yeah, super annoying. Maybe I'll just restart VS Code. Maybe it's just program provoke community client source component add post. Then it would be. I'm just upset that my, you know, upset that my find path. So here's like a lesson. Thanks, Steve. So here's the lesson. When you rely too much on using all the amazing VS Code features, like being able to find path for you, then you'll just randomly forget, you know, 1 dot versus 2 dot. But we literally had to go 1 folder out to hit a markdown editor. And anyway, so I think we are back in business. So we currently have, oh, great. Oh, great. Yeah, so now we're in business. This is where we're going to have the stuff. So we have our editor here, markdown editor. So let's kind of go back here. And I'm just going to copy and paste some of these elements because it's going to be the same thing. And I'm going to, like, I just don't want to waste anybody's time. So I'll kind of, yep. And that's, Steve, that's what we did. 100%. Thank you for your aid. And so now I'm just going to just copy this right here because I know that's going to be a part of a thing here. Let's go back to our add post. We're going to pull our form from our, let's close this baby. And then we want to close our field set. And the reason why I'm doing field set, I'll talk about that in a second. Oh God, did you see that autocorrect, everybody? Field set. What the hell? It messed me up. Let me reset this. Field set disabled. Field set closed, like this. Boom. So we have form, field set, blah, 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 loading. Yep. And so now we have to import our, I was just double checking, import our form from React Bootstrap. That's going to go away. Then we need to have a function to handle submit. So we'll just handle submit form here. So that doesn't complain. And we'll automatically do event.prevent default. And that just prevents the browser's tendency to refresh the browser when you submit a form. Loading, we don't have. Field name, we don't have. Handle set fields, we don't have yet. So for now, I'm just gonna remove this just so stuff doesn't crash. And this is gonna be title. Name, we're gonna say title. Type text, enter post title. And basically what this is gonna do, it's true, whatever, stop complaining. And what this is going to do when is to take the input for our title. So let's see if that generated. And right now I'm just kind of, okay, it's expect stuff. Okay, great, it's expecting stuff here. Let's just do about, oh my god, let's do no. I don't think that's gonna break it. Refresh. Yeah, so now we have our place to add our title, and we have a place to add our blog. So that's good. That's all we need at this point for now. And so now what we need to do is have a way to save whatever the value we get from this field and whatever value we get from markdown editor. And there's lots of questions like, how do you pass, let's say, data from this editor? Do you add the unchanged in the parent, or do you do something stupid like this? Which I'm actually curious, like, is this like a valid way to do it? So for instance, I want to pass a prop up. Well, how could I pass a prop up? I could probably process it back by having some sort of callback, right? I'm just calling callback. And I don't know if this is a good strategy, but we will get the answer because maybe Steve will know. And if we do our use effect, right? And we do something stupid like this, callback value, and then we'll do value and callback. And so basically what we could do now here, go back to our project, not add project, add post. We could have our callback that we pass as a function, and this allows us, I'm just going to console log data, and I guess we're getting data like this. I'm not sure if this is a good strategy, or is it better to move the state to the parent? Because markdown editor, right, the way I look at it, markdown editor could be in a bunch of other different components. So having this mechanism using a callback to pass the data back from, yeah, I mean, this is not that deep, so I think at this point, like, using context doesn't really make sense at this moment, because it's only just passing up to the parent. But if I'm going to share it, that makes sense. So again, coming this to original question from editor, is it make sense to do it this way, or just move the state up to the add post parent? So let me make the field set. Interesting thing about field set, if you wrap your elements, like your 4 elements inside field set, and if field set is disabled, it's going to disable all the elements inputs, including the button. So if I enable this by doing true, everything should work fine at this point. Should work fine. Let me refresh. Okay, it's false. Disabled false, Paul. You just said that. Okay, so now we could type here. We're not getting that state there. And right here now, check this out. Let's do inspect. Console log. Maybe I'm an idiot. What's the issue here? Okay, we'll fix this later. I just put null so you shut up, but you're not setting up. So now look, I'm able to type whatever in my markdown thingy that we have here, and it's passing the prop up to our add post component. And I'm gonna leave it like this for now. So basically, for those of you who are wondering, we have this markdown component that is a separate component, and I decided to keep the markdown state local to that component, but I wanted to add a mechanism of passing it back, and we're doing it via callback. And so I used use effect, which every time some change happens here, it will fire the callback, which will in turn pass the data to our parent component. What I could have done is I could have took this state, right, like this. I'm not gonna do it, but I could have done it, and I could have moved it up and use it here, and it would work basically the same way. And so for my purposes, instead of having, you know what, let's do it. I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna move it up to the parent, and this way you get two ways. You could see that you could pass the state up by using a callback, or we could do it this way, and I'll show you why. I'm gonna kind of change my mind in a second, right? and this should also work, is we do set value, and we're going to pass set value, and we also need to pass value at this point. And I think there's, and then he says use it where it's needed. And okay, I'll just show you that. And I do have a custom hook for the form. It's just the markdown editor is like a separate component that was outside of the form elements that I made. But yeah, it's 100% true. Let me just do it like this for now, and then because I think I do have a custom hook that I used in the previous form, let me pull use state here. And so now we go to, so we're holding our state in the parent, and I think it makes sense to keep it in that form element. So now what I could do is, instead of this, I could pull back set value and value, and then I could get rid of this, I could get rid of this, and in theory I could get rid of use effect, I could get rid of use state, and in theory it should all work the same way. So when I type here, the state still works. So let's console log that baby if you guys don't believe me here, and then I'll take a look at comments. So let me go here, return console. Oh my god, I can't spell console. Are you serious? It's not that I can't spell console, is that I type slower than I think, or think faster, whatever. It's one of the two. And so now check this out. We'll refresh. Yes, we know about that value prop input should not be null. Yeah, we'll fix it. Don't worry. So now look, we type and we have access to our state. So, and this is kind of works on change. So what I'm doing here is, so Steve says, is that not going to be unchanged? And what he's referring to here is in Markdown, go to definition, I have unchanged here. So I can pass unchanged and keep the set. Yeah, you could do that. That's actually makes sense too. So what Steve is saying is this. You could do unchanged, right? And this will be unchanged. It's great. It's great to like kind of explore these things and kind of see how things work. And we go to our add project here, not add project, add post here. And instead of set value, we could do this on change. And that should also still work the same way. So let's go back here. Yeah, and that works the same way. So let's do it this way because it kind of makes sense. And so now we have our data being passed to our parent. Now what we want to do is we want to get the value of this form. And I believe I do have a hook that I'm using to handle all that stuff. So let me take a look here. Hooks. So I have a use form hook, and I'll show you the implementation. And so we're actually going to use the hook instead to get the data. So I used it in add project. So I'm getting my use form hook, and inside that use form hook, and I'll show it you guys in a second, and so use form takes a couple of things. It takes the fields, and I'll show you what that is, but more importantly, it takes the initial. It doesn't take those items, it returns those items, but it takes initial form state. That is true. It stops you from confusing past props. That makes sense. And so let me show you the hook form here. So this is a generic use form hook that I'm able to use to get data from forms. And basically what you pass inside here is initial state, and it will set the fields to the initial state. So we could kind of start working on that. So let me show you in add projects, and it will return fields. You could set the fields and reset fields. And so if we needed that functionality, and I'll show you what I mean here. If we go to our add project code, so I use the, oh, I kind of removed it. Let me go here, show you by example. I think it'll be good to see. Dashboard. Let me kind of open this. We did this like bunch of streams ago. Oh my goodness. Bunch of streams ago. So our hook basically gives us this, oh my God, reset. This functionality, like if I start typing stuff here and I click reset, it will reset the form back to the beginning. So this is being passed from our use form hook. But let me look at the comments quickly, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Okay. So we're good to go. We're going to continue making progress here. So what I'm going to do is go to my add post and I'm going to import, I don't know what that was, import use form from use form hooks. And I'm just trusting, yeah, export as default. Just want to double check because I'm kind of, sometimes Copilot guesses right, sometimes it guesses wrong. And so we're going to have our hook here. Const is going to return some stuff, and it's going to be coming from use form, and initial form state we don't have. And so I'm going to kind of create const initial state form, which is going to be an object which will allow us to have the form data. And I'll show you what we previously did in add project. It's basically an object which is going to have the key, which is going to match the name of the fields. So notice we have name field, we have description, and this is from add project. I'm just kind of showing you the example how we use it. And we're going to have name and description. So here in add post, we have, what am I clicking here? We have what I call that. I call it name or title. So I called it title. So we're going to have title, and it's going to be set to nothing. And then the last thing we have here is markdown editor. And this is kind of interesting because we're currently handling this through the hook on change. So how are we going to get this data to go to our, I'm going to call this markdown. We're going to try something anyway. Markdown. Because we're using, so here's an interesting thing here. In our hook, we're using event.target to get the unchanged handler, which is not what is happening in our current situation from getting the data. You know what? This is going to be overkill because I don't even need to use this use form hook. Because I'm only literally getting this one field, and this I'm getting already in state here. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm not even going to use this hook. It's overkill for, goddamn, because we are going to have eventually more items. No, I'm going to use the thing. It's not overkill. And initial form state, we're not going to worry about that because they're coming different. Just trust me on this guy. So eventually we're going to have more items because we're going to have our area. So like if I'll give you like a visual here. Eventually we're going to have an area for our tags, an area for our image, an area for is it private or not. Maybe we'll eventually have some metadata or whatever. So eventually we will add more fields. So for now, we're only getting the title and the content stuff that we want to have on our front end here. So we will have the title, we have the content. I know it might be a little bit confusing. So we're going to keep it here. That's fine. So now let's take a look at our use, because we're passing the value of our initial form state to our use form hook. Our use form hook sets the value of the state to that initial form. So we have here an object which has a title and an empty string because there's no data there. And basically when we have handle set fields here, and when this gets fired is gonna set the fields to our state. So let's get our handle set fields from here, and we also have our fields. And so now the way this is going to work, value is going to be fields.title, and on change is going to be handle set fields. And my kitty cat wants to say hello. Kitty cat, you could say hello later. Okay, you said hello. Hello. Bye-bye. All right. So, and let's take a look here. Console log fields, just to make sure that it works. Fields. Hello. And again, it's overkill at this point using a custom hook, but eventually we're going to have a lot more items that we're adding. So now when I type here, notice title, we're getting it from our use form hook. So that works as expected. So now we have the two items that we need. We have our title and we have our content, right? Content. And I'm not going to worry about error checking right now at the moment. I just want to get the basic thing that we're able to post the data to the database and have something happen. So I'll add error handling later, but for now I just want to kind of be like, okay, we have our form, and const, I'm just going to say data to send for now. And this is going to be an object, and I forgot what I'm calling it in the database or in the query because we're using GraphQL, and I'll talk about it as we do this. But we're going to have an object that we're sending, and it has to match what the GraphQL expects. So if you're not familiar with GraphQL, I'll do my best to try to kind of help you guys out. But we have our, you know how you use Postman when you use REST APIs or working with APIs? In GraphQL, they have GraphQL Playground, and it's kind of like a Postman for GraphQL development. So this is what we have here. And just trust me on this, like when we created this application, what Strapi does based on your data schema, it creates the queries and damn it, left the screen, and damn it, too far, creates, let me make this bigger. Can I make this bigger? No, can I? It creates our queries, which is basically to get data, and it creates our mutation, which is basically something that allows us to post data. And so because we created in our Strapi application, this is why I like Strapi, we created our posts, it automatically created a bunch of methods that we have available to us via GraphQL in mutations, like create post, update post, delete post. So we're interested about create post. So like, I'm sure Steve has an answer for sure, but my answer is if you're passing one, maybe 2 level deep, and it's something that's local, let's say the parent component and the children components, you know, it makes sense to pass down 1 level, 2 levels even maybe. But if you have to like pass down, like past like 4 levels or 5 levels, then it's when I would use context. So I don't use context until like it's an issue. And because I'm using GraphQL in this application, I don't even have to use context because we have this concept of state with GraphQL. But I only use context if I have to pass stuff like super duper deep. So I think, you know, I'd love to hear like Steve's answer for that. But for me, it's if you're passing, you know, props from a parent to a child, like I did in the previous example inside the form, that's perfectly fine. There's no reason to do context actually in the example that we did on the form here because it would be overkill. Yeah, so one level is fine. And I said, so I'm gonna stick to my answer. One level for sure, maybe 2 levels deep, because sometimes, you know, if that component is second level deep and it's not being repeated anywhere in the code base, and it's the only place you have to pass a prop, I'll go 2 levels deep, you know. But okay, so we talked about data to send, and we need to basically match what create post query expects. Yeah, and that's a good rule right here. If you're not using the prop in the component, you pass it to and only pass it on from there, then use context. Yeah, and that's a good rule of thumb. So we need to write a mutation, and we're gonna call it add post, and we're going to take in, so it says that the payload is the post, type create post payload. So we're going to create a variable post, and it's going to take a post. Do I put the type? I think I put the type, create post input. I gotta double check. It's been a while. Let's experiment. Docs. That's why we have the docs here. It should be required. And add post mutation, and it's create post, and that's going to take input, and that input's going to be our post. And to make sure that we get some data back, we want to get back the create post ID and title, and we also have content. And so basically this mutation here, and I probably wrote it wrong, you know, but I think it's right. So what this will allow us to do, and what's the beauty of working with GraphQL Playground, is that we could test it. So we want to create a post, and so this expects the create post input data, which we could see is the post, which could contain an ID, created at, updated at, that is done automatically, but we could pass the title, text, content, author. So we're going to pass the author, we're going to pass the title and the content, because that's the items that we need. So in here we could actually do that here. So we pass post, and that will have the data, and the data is going to be title, test from where we from I wonder if it's just data. I think it's just data. No, it's not. Anyway, we'll figure this out. Hold on a second. We'll go back here. Posts, data. That makes no sense to me. I gotta input. Oh, because is it because I called it post? Let me try something. Let's do. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine for now. Test from. Yeah, guys, look, I'm not a master. Sometimes I get forgetful, so we're gonna work through it. Test from GraphQl. I think that's what it's called. So, and then we want to add content. Test content. No, that's right. I'm doing things right. And then we have author. And let me just steal an author ID that I know I have, so we actually could test something. So we have users, Yeah, it's fine. We have users. We're going to say it's Aria, and her ID is 2. And so now we need author. So because in order to add a post, you need to be a sign-in or authenticated user. So we have to add authorization here. Authorization, I don't know how to say it. A lot of times I misspell it wrong, but it's, oh my God, what is it doing? So basically we need to pass a authorization token, and it's going to be bearer, and it's going to be our logged in token. We don't have it right now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, from here, mutation, I think it's called login, and it takes in input, which is, I forgot what the login takes in. That's why we have the docs. So if I want a mutation to log in, and the reason why I need to log in through the backend is because I need to get an access for the token that I need to pass. So input is user permission payload, and user input, user permission login, payload, login, input. It takes identifier and a string. So we want to do input, and it takes a identifier, which is the username, email. Let me just use this one because I can't remember, just to test. And then it takes in the password. Actually, we don't need a comma here. It takes in the password, which is test user. And then what we want to return from here is the JWT token that we need in order to make a authorized request. So right now, if I run this query, no, we don't need this here. So why is it not? What are you talking about? Bad request. So password is one of these items is okay. So I must have mistyped my password wrong. So let's say I'm gonna rewrite it here. You know. So this is, by the way, guys, the reason why I do this a lot. Yeah, to look up the token from local storage. I guess I could do that because I have the user, but I just want to show you what happens, because behind the scene, this is what's happening when you log in. We basically, and I'll show you what that works in the application. I just want to show it to you guys here as well. But yeah, I could get it from local storage. You're absolutely right. Test user. So here we go. We got our JWT token. And so now I could test my post request, add mutation. So hit play. So the reason why it says forbidden is because in Strapi, all of the controllers, they're basically blocked off until you give permission. So we go to Strapi here, and what we want to do here is go into settings, go to roles and permissions, go for authenticated users. Notice how we have our post. And currently we're not able to create, so I'm going to add the create, update, and delete for authorized users. Save this baby, go back to our playground, refresh. And now when I click play, so notice we're passing test from GraphQl test content misspelled user 2. I click play. So now this created the post. We should be able to see this post. And this actually shows us this mutation works, which is amazing. No, we're not storing passwords in local storage. And yes, and JWT do expire, so you would want to make sure you have refreshability. Yes. But I'm just showing you kind of from the standpoint of in the backend, in order to authorize this to work, you need to be logged in, and you have to use the appropriate front-end JW token that you get provided. So now I was able to create that post by being logged in and having the JW token. So if we look here in our React application, let me close this here. We should go to blogs and test from GraphQl. So notice this is the post that I added from GraphQl, so I know my mutation works, which is great. And if we go in Strapi, look at posts, I didn't add any tags, but here you go, test from GraphQl, and we know this works. So our bare minimum works. So now what we need to do is we need to copy this, and we need to implement it in our code. And because we tested it in our GraphQl playground, which by the way, if this is developed to production, you won't be able to hit this endpoint and do the stuff I'm doing. This is only for development purposes. So once this is in production, this is not going to work like this. So let's go to our code. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, and eventually I'll refactor. But right now I'm just going to do it all in one screen. But I like to move the queries out. So we need to get GQL, which allows us to write our GraphQL query that we just tested. And then we want to use mutation, which will allow us from Apollo client, that's the package we're using, allows us to do our mutation. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our query that we did, right? And I just, it's not a query, it's a mutation. So I'm going to be really like a verb, mutation. And I'm going to basically do const. I know I'm doing it backward, GQL, wrap that in the GQL method and do this. And so now we have our mutation. Now we have to set up our add post mutation, and autocomplete does a great job. So what we're passing in here is we're passing our query or our mutation for GraphQL, and we get an array back with at post, and we also have an object that has loading, error, which I won't worry about right now, and data, which is going to be your response. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pass loading here. So when something's happening, you know, it's going to disable the form. And then here I'm going to do a simple if statement, says if error, right? Not console log, if error, return. And eventually I'll refactor this. For now, actually, let's actually show the message. Why not? Error.message. And, you know, this works. And then now inside our handle form submit, there's a bunch of logic that we have to explore and think about in terms of, you know, making sure that there's data in the inputs. Make sure the form is not blank, but we're going to do that later. For now, we just want to make sure, can we get this to work, and can we post a basic blog to our database? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a sync, because we want to await for the add post method to run and finish. And what this is going to take is going to take our variable, which is basically the data that we want to pass, and that data has to match what we used here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. It's going to be our, and we don't need to do it in JSON. It's just going to be an object. And okay, author, somewhere something's missing content. Okay, here we go.
And no quote there. I see what happened. And I don't need this data to send. I'll just put it directly inside here. So here the title is going to come from fields.title. The content is going to come from set value. Let me actually change that. And instead of value, it's going to be content. And we're going to call this set content. Makes a little bit more sense. Content. And so we're going to pass. Let me move this. We're going to move this here. So this is going to be the content. And because the fields match, you could just do content like this. And then, but I'm just going to keep it like this for now. And then we need author ID, which we have to still get, which we'll figure out how to do that in a second. Let's not worry about the data at the moment. Or, you know what we could do? We could console log it if everything went great. Console.log data post added. And then I'll do try and catch later. For now, I just want to get the basics here to work. And we have the title, we have the content, and then we have to get our author. We actually need to, because we changed the names here, we need to go on change. It's actually going to be set content, and this is going to be content. Just learn to spell content. This is going to be, we could keep value like that, that's fine. So in theory everything should work. So now we just have to get the author, and I believe I'm storing the author in local. Actually, I think I'm using, I don't even remember, it's been a while, but I think I'm storing the author ID in context. I believe I am. I believe I am. So let's see here. It's been a while since I looked. It's either in context or in local storage in terms of log. Let me just check here. Add project, because so use form, use navigate, blah blah blah. I know we need file, blah 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 blah. Name, input data, description, set. Interesting. I wonder if I'm handling adding the author on the back end. I wasn't kind of like wanting to do that, kind of go that far, but let me double check. So the cool thing about Strapi here is that you have ability to override controllers. So we have a project controller, and if you take a look at it here, and what I'm doing, instead of passing, let's see here, developer, instead of passing the data from the front end, I'm getting the user from the back end. So that way you don't get to pass user from the front end. So what would happen here on the front end is that instead of, and I like that because it's more secure. So instead of passing, where we at here? Yeah, instead of passing author from the front end, we actually delete it and we handle it in the back end. So it's going to add slight additional kind of work that we have to do, but that's okay, because now you get to see a little bit about customizing back end of Strapi. So I'll show you what I mean. So notice how we have And I could literally copy and paste this because it'll be the same but different. I'll show you what I mean in a second. But basically, if you look at the controllers, we have our project controller, and notice how we have stuff here, right? Now, if we go to posts and we click controller, notice that this is empty, because this basically says if you don't want any additional functionality and you want the default controller to do its thing, then yeah, and I agree with Steve here. I'll just add crap ton of posts if you pass it from the front end, 100%. And so what we're going to do, we're going to hook into the post controller, and I'm just going to paste the code from before because the functionality is going to be very similar. And I'm going to kind of talk through it a little bit. So the first thing is going to check. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to get access to the state and the user internally logged in the backend, and we're going to get that ID. We're going to console log. Then we're going to create a variable here, and I don't think like, hold on a second, let me blah 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 request body like count like la, 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 la. And so we're not passing multi-part. So for the brevity of this, I'm just going to do this right now. Just to simplify the code here. And so basically what we're going to do and this is not going to be projects, this is going to be posts, because that's the controller and the service that Strapi provides for us. So basically what happens, we get that user ID, we're going to destructure the data that we're getting, and then we have the author, and we're going to set it to the ID. And what I'm going to do, and then we want to return not project, posts. So this is just like not to go too crazy, and you could read more in the docs, but we basically overwritten the general behavior of Strapi controller to basically allow us to set user in the backend and not worry about the front end. And we don't need files because we're not adding any files. So basically we're in theory going to destructure the data that we're getting, and then we're going to overwrite author with the ID of the user. And I'm going to console log ID. And let me make, and it'll probably blow up into my face, but it's okay. ID. Oh, wrong button. And then what I want to see here, console.log entity. And actually, let me restart the server, because whenever you do stuff, it breaks stuff or it kicks you off from running the server. So in theory now, this should work. So we should be able to write some stuff from the front end, and it will work. And again, I could test it here, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna try it from here. So this is the code that we wrote. Let's just kind of go over quickly. We have our add post mutation. We are going to pass into it our title and our content that we're getting from our state. We have our input for the title. We have our input for the markdown. And when we hit submit, it'll probably blow up. So the good news though is we're going to set the user on the back end. So there's no way to pass a different ID for a user when you're making the request. So let's give it a break. Let's give it a break. Let's break it. Let's check it out. So we go here, go to dashboard, work in progress. Let me kind of move this out of the way for now so it doesn't bog us down. Dashboard. All right, so let me refresh. So did this work? I don't know. And let's make it bold. Or, oh, I don't know. Make it bold. Hey, we're not. I forgot I don't know. Okay, so, oh, do you guys see the problem here? What's the problem? We don't have a submit button. What are we doing? Of course, this is not going to work because we don't have submit. Luckily, you know, we've done the submit button in our add project. It's like, no, it's not going to work. Why not? You don't have a submit button. So I'm just going to copy and paste the submit button here. So I'm not going to worry about reset, create project, whatever. It's not going to be create project. I'm just copying add post. Let's add our button, create post, format. Let's import button from React Bootstrap. And again, like, there's a bunch of stuff I'm kind of glassing over because I just want, like, even the styling. What I want is to just test the bare minimum functionality. So can we add a title and a blog to our post? And I wonder if we should also add a redirect. We could do it eventually where it will redirect us to blogs where we could see the blog. So moment of truth. Okay, guys, dashboard. OMG if this works. And then did it work? And then create post. Let's open the trusty inspector, go to network, create post. Data is not defined. So we have our first error. And then let's go and see if you could troubleshoot it. So we got the user. Data is not defined. That's a good point. Data has to be coming from somewhere. So let's take a look at our example controller that we use for projects. Okay, so we will be getting we're not passing a multi-part request. And that's where we had data and files. We're not passing any files with this request. So what we actually need to destructure is the CTX request body. And what I'm going to do is just going to copy and paste this for now. Go to our post, and I'm going to console log that. CTX request body. See what it says. It's still probably not going to work, but I want to just check and see this. See what's happening here. So let's refresh. Let's do not going to work. Going to work. It's okay. Create post. Data is not defined. If you look at our... What is happening here? We still get a 200 because that worked. Now check this out. We go here, CTX request body. We actually have our message. We have our content. So now all we have to do, instead of data, which we're not using, we just need to destructure CTX request body as a simple fix. And now we could delete this. And now, like, I have 10% confidence that it's going to work. So let's go back to our code, refresh. This will work, I hope. Create post. So I guess we should reset the form to nothing when the post created and do some sort of thing that signifies that the post went. But it's fine because now if we look at our GraphQL data that we sent our post, we sent our message. And if we go here to our blog, this will work, I hope. And so this is working. We're able to post our blog from our front end. So we're able to go from our front end, go to our dashboard and another blog. There's still a lot of stuff that we have to work on to clear this up. And the cool thing is that we could write this with markdown. This was cool. Yeah, it works. And so there's a lot of like nice things, like we set this to null when the post is sent. Maybe have people be redirected to the post, maybe not, but have something that signifies that the response went through. We also need to add error handling here as well. But as you could see, if you go to our blog, test, what do I call test from GraphQL, this will work. Second post, I forgot what this post, test content, so it didn't work. Oh no, I had to refresh. So actually there's a couple items. So notice when I sent the request through GraphQL, when I navigated to the blog, this didn't show up because until I refreshed. So we have to do a refetch query to refetch these after we submit the project, something that we're going to do in the next live stream, because I think this is going for a while. So at least the bare minimum, we know that we are able to go to our dashboard and basically add our title, add our blog post. And what I want to do in the eventual stream is to fix the UI here, add error messages. So if you don't put anything right in the title, it shouldn't, you know, right now we have basic check from the front end, but we wanted to show an error. I know for a fact though, if I leave the content blank, it's still gonna let me post. See, so if we go to our blog, let me refresh. This is the one that I did. Look, it allowed me to post like blank content. There's no text here. So we got to add those checks. But for the most part, I'm like really excited for the standpoint that we were able to set up basic add post functionality. So what did we add today? So today we added our form that has two inputs, one for the title and one is the markdown editor. If you guys are curious, I didn't code it from scratch. Markdown editor, it's a library that you could find, React MD editor npm package that will allow you to kind of have this nice editor to be able to add stuff. And what do you mean by never put your query in the front end? Pass through a key in the backend and pick up the query based on the key, then use it. So currently, like with at least GraphQL Apollo client, you are making the queries from the front end using the patterns that GraphQL, you know, kind of provides and shows. But in terms of it being successful or not, you have to be authorized on the back end for it to work. So Yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. In terms of like these queries which update the database or any of the clients, they have to be authorized, and that authorization happens on the back end. So if you're not an authorized user, that that would fail, and it would say you're not authorized. So in terms of like being able to pass whatever query using the GraphQL Apollo client, that works. But I am going to explore what you mean and do the stuff from the back end. But in terms of like when using Apollo client, this is perfectly fine, especially if you are doing the validation in the back end, and that is determined, in the back end. So if you're not authorized, doesn't matter what you pass, it's not going to work in terms of the way Strapi like implements it. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how you would do that. Like in terms of, so you could write a query, but that query is going to be checked, and you could have additional logic in the back end that checks, like, because the query doesn't directly interact with the database, right? So you have the resolver code that makes something happen. So like I'll be curious, like for instance, like I could go into Playground, and if I don't have the authorization or I'm logged in, I'm gonna get forbidden, and I'm gonna have, no, I'm not able to make the query, not able to make the access. So like in this application, kind of like right now showing the basics, I'm not going too crazy on the back end, kind of adding additional security risks. But eventually all this stuff, you're right, like you can, if you're authorized and you're able to pass a query, if there's no additional logic on the back end that checks and adds additional layer of security or permissioning or what have you, yeah, you could technically do that. And this is something that we're going to work on eventually. So like right now I'm using Strapi to create an easy enough front end, and I'm going to look into it for sure. Any query you can write in GraphQL as an authorized user can be changed. Yeah, so if you have any resources doing server-side querying with GraphQL without using the client, I definitely would like to learn about it. So you got my email, like definitely send me some resources, and I'll also Google on my own. But I really appreciate the point. I think that makes sense. But for the purposes for today, I think, we're doing good. We're slowly making progress. And I think once we get our basic functionality done with all the different features, I do want to make sure that we figure out what are the best practices. Like I know Apollo client is so common and so many people use it. And so I would love to learn more about how one could hack it to break it or be able to do any query or pass any query. I am curious about that because I want to learn how to make it more secure than what it already is. So that's a great point, Steve, and definitely good thing to look into. So for the next stream, I'm kind of happy what we're doing here. We have our blog posts. We got, like, I will fix the styling later, not worry more about the functionality. We started the initial functionality where we're able to add the title, we're able to add the content. The last few fields that I want to add, which we could possibly do in the next stream, which is to add, if we want this post to be private or not. If we add tags and then add the image, and the image is going to be a little bit tricky, but we will figure it out how to do it, and most likely the first time it'll be a hacky way, and then eventually we'll be able to add the image, iterate, and make it appropriate. But that's going to be the next step. So let me take a look at the comments before we end here. And so breakpoint in the browser, then rewrite the query. I'm gonna have to try that for sure, because yeah, that makes sense. But how do you know what to rewrite the query to? And I'm sure you could obviously, like, if you're smart enough, know what you're doing, you obviously can figure that out. Yeah, but that definitely makes sense. If you set a breakpoint to before passing the query, you rewrite it inside. And then, yeah, I'm going to play with that. Actually, I'm going to try that. I think that's a good idea and a good first step to kind of learn more about the securing the application and kind of seeing where to take it. So definitely a great point. I definitely want to give you kudos, because it's important for people to understand all the security risks that can happen. And I'm curious, like, why Apollo Client's so popular if it's that easy to, you know, mess with the queries, you know. And then obviously, what are the steps can you take on the back end to avoid that from happening? And one suggestion, you're saying pass through a key to the back end and pick up the query based on the key, then use it. And so, like, this kind of means to me it's that you will handle the GraphQL query from the back end, and you basically have some sort of mechanism where you're able to do a key lookup on the type of query that you want. So in any case, you're never running the GraphQL query from the client, but running it from the backend. That's kind of my general understanding of what you're saying, and I'm definitely gonna look up and learn more about it. So so yeah, no, that's a great point. Thanks so much. So with that being said, guys, any questions on what we did so far? I do these live streams every Tuesday, 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And the reason why I do it is because I want to showcase the reality of coding and learning development on your own, especially if you're a self-taught developer. A lot of people, you know, they don't show the realistic kind of expectation of what it's like to code on your own. Everybody's either has a pre-built, you know, project, and then they just copy and paste and show you the code, or they are, you know, doing something they already practiced many times, and so there is no errors, there is no like stumbling. And in reality, when you're coding on your own, it's all about stumbling, it's all about making mistakes. And so I want to showcase it in the streams. Another reason why I want to do is because, you know, a lot of you guys jump on and give really good feedback, and definitely appreciate Steve being here. You know, he doesn't have to be here. You know, he already got his experience, 37 years of building stuff. And so I appreciate, because I'm getting like literally great feedback on stuff that I should watch out as a developer, and it helps me to find other things to look into and pursue in terms of my learning. So really appreciate it. And also want to say to you guys is that learning and becoming a web developer, it's all about making sure that you're building stuff. And I'm not afraid of failing, I'm not afraid of embarrassing myself, and you shouldn't be either. You should just stumble through the code that you're writing, figure out where you stumbled, figure out how to do it better, and iterate on that process. And so I have this YouTube channel, and I want to keep it real, and I want to make sure, and part of this live stream on Tuesdays is that I want it to be about coding. I want it to be about my journey getting better, showing you the reality of coding on your own. So if you're starting out, you see me and you see how much I struggle sometimes, and it motivates you to continue, because, you know, it's perfectly normal to do that. And also another reason why I like this live stream is because it allows me to see what you guys suggest, and allows me to kind of iterate through stuff much faster, because instead of having to figure things out myself, I'm able to kind of see it through your comments. So I really appreciate it. So if you guys like what I do on this channel, definitely consider subscribing. If you didn't smash the like button, I don't know what you guys were doing before. And I know sometimes watching these coding live streams is boring as hell, but that's part of the journey that we all have to embark. So with that being said, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody that was here, and I appreciate you guys all. And everybody have a great night and happy holidays. And I'll see you guys next time.